Hello and welcome to week 11, use of punishment. As you can see from your syllabus, this topic is going to be covered across a couple of classes. This one is online, and then next week's Monday, April 11th, will be in person and we'll be discussing the readings. The use of punishment remains one of the most disputed areas in the field of behavior analysis. Some people, like the 1990 Horner article that you're going to read this week, argue that punishment is unnecessary, claiming that reinforcement-based procedures can address all behavior problems. And then you have others, like the Lerman article, that argue that punishment, when used ethically and along with positive reinforcement, can be more effective in some cases than reinforcement alone. But this is a very, very complicated area, and one of the reasons is because of the definitions of what is punishment, what are aversive events, is not clear, and so that's one of the biggest issues. So let's start with that. What is punishment? Well, there's the common usage of punishment, which is retribution. So if someone steals money, they give the money back and they go to prison as retribution, and hopefully going to prison because they did something wrong will decrease the future probability of them stealing again. So that's sort of the common example, is you use something that is aversive, and that is because someone did something wrong. But the problem is that doesn't always work. So, and that of course is very different than behavior analysis definition, which is from a behavior analysis point of view, as the Cooper articles, Cooper chapters that you're reading make very clear, is the way a behavior analyst defines punishment is some kind of an environmental change, either the contingent presentation of something, positive punishment, as Cooper will call it, or the contingent withdrawal of something, negative punishment, results in a decrease in the future probability of the behavior. That's the key part. So from a retribution point of view, you would just punishment is doing something because somebody did something wrong, because really you're getting even. Punishment from an applied behavior analysis perspective is something, an event, that results in which results in a decrease in the future probability of that behavior. So, for example, that could break down for a couple of reasons. One, let's say a student doesn't like the grade that they've gotten on a test, and so they threaten the instructor. They break his computer and say, change that grade. Well, being yelled at and having your computer broken may very well, and probably is, an aversive event. However, if that professor does not change the person's grade, then in terms of, from a behavior analysis point of view, that wasn't punishment. But from a common usage point of view of retribution, it is. The person was mad, so now they're going to punish the professor by yelling at him and breaking his computer. On the other hand, something may not function as punishment, even though most of us think it's aversive. It may not, in fact, be aversive to the individual. So, an example we're all more familiar with would be if an individual engages in severe aggression and people put that person in restraint. Now, that would assume, most people would assume that that would be an aversive event. Having your limbs held against your will is pretty much something that would be aversive to most of us. But there are people who actually enjoy that close physical contact. And for them, that restraint is not only not aversive, but in fact is reinforcing, and therefore you would predict just the opposite. Instead of a decrease in that physical aggression, if in fact the person enjoys the physical restraint, if the physical restraint is a reinforcer in our lexicon, then that would result in an increase in the behavior that you are punishing, and therefore, of course, it wouldn't be punishment. So this is one of the biggest issues and one of the reasons that people really have trouble communicating about punishment and, from an ethical point of view, what is appropriate and what is not. The other thing that these articles that you'll be reading over the next 2 weeks talk about, and I think it's an incredibly important point, and the Vollmer article really talks about this the most, is that we've got to understand that punishment is a natural thing. Punishment happens. Now, we may not like it, but punishment happens. Harsh words, bad grades, slipping on the ice, car accidents, public humiliation, these things happen whether we like it or not. And there's an upside to punishment. If one takes advantage of it, probably the reason that you've all made it to graduate school is that you've tried other ways of studying or not studying, and those have been punished in the sense that you didn't get the grades that you wanted, or you got bad grades, and you learned how to change your study behaviors. We learn not to touch hot stoves. We learn not to interrupt people. We learn to work hard. We learn how to focus. Potentially, probably, because of punishment, because we've been punished. So, even though it's probably not PC, it still is a fact. Punishment happens. It's a very, very natural thing. It's a way that people learn, and we can't just pretend that we're going to eliminate punishment entirely, because it's just not practical that would ever happen. All right, so a couple other issues I want you to consider when you're reading these articles is what do the ethical guidelines say about the use of punishment? Now, you've all gone through all the ethical guidelines, and there are several that focus specifically on aversives and the use of restrictive or aversive events. And so as you're reading these articles, I want you to think about what are the ethical guidelines and what do they say about punishment. I also want you to think about what are some of the ethical considerations in using punishment. If you agree that punishment is something that naturally happens, then what are some of the conditions in which that you are going to use it? and trying to determine that. So this week, I want you to read the Horner article, the Luhrmann and Voldrin article. Both of those are pretty long. And then chapters 14 and 15 of Cooper. I'm pretty sure you probably have read chapters 14 and 15 in Cooper in the past. However, I think it would be good to at least look at those again, because Cooper does do a good job of presenting how a behavior analyst looks at punishment and aversive events. And then next week, read the Horner and Vollmer articles. Now, both of those are short, and those are responses to the Luhrmann article that you're going to read the week before. And then the APBA, which is the Association of Professional Behavior Analysts, position statement. That is a group. I think I've talked about them in class before, but it's a group that you should get to know more. It's really about mostly master's level behavior analysts, and the focus is on professional kinds of aspects of their jobs. So these kind of ethical issues come up, so it makes a lot of sense that they came up with a position paper on the use of restraint and seclusion. So also next week we're going to do something different, and we're going to meet in person. So we'll have a face-to-face class on Monday, April 11th. And what I want you to do is to present your position on the use of punishment in ABA. I also want you to be prepared to cite the relevant readings as you're talking about what your position is, and hopefully we'll have a nice discussion, even though there's only a few of us in class. What the relevant ethical guidelines are and how they are influencing what you're saying, and then how your personal experiences have shaped your opinions on this topic. So it should be fun, and as soon as I come up with a room, I will email you and let you know exactly what room we're going to meet in. All right? So I look forward to seeing you on Monday, April 11th, as usual. If you have questions, just put them in the discussion board. See ya.